Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the two noble kinsmen and we get to hear from Theseus today in Act 1, Scene 4. So Act 1, Scene 4 starts off with a war that is described by saying, like, there's a battle within and then there's a flourish and then Theseus comes in triumphant. So I guess if you're producing this play, you can flesh that out and put as much of a battle scene in as you want to, but you don't really have to because it's not given a whole lot of attention in terms of stage direction, because there's other places that they want this story to go. They don't want to just dwell on Theseus fighting Creon to get the bodies of these three kings back. So it starts out with those stage directions, and Theseus comes in triumphant, and he's followed by the three queens, who all thank Theseus profusely, and he's like, cool, now go get your husband's bodies and give them proper burial. Glad I could help, kind of a thing. And the three queens leave, and in come a few attendants with Palamon and Arcite as prisoners, and at least the impression is given that they are unconscious, barely alive, that sort of a thing. They're not, being walked in of their own accord. They're sort of being dragged in, captured as prisoners. And there's a little bit of discussion, like, who are these guys? And the herald who has brought them in is like, well, I think that they are nephews to the king. And Theseus is like, oh, well, then maybe it's a good thing that we have them if they really are. And the herald's like, yeah, I believe that they are men of note, like actual men. And Theseus says, then like men, use them. The very lees of such, millions of rates, exceed the wine of others. All our surgeons convent in their behoof. Our richest balms, rather than begrudge, waste. Their lives concern us much more than Thebes is worth. Rather than have them freed of this plight and in their mourning state, sound and at liberty, I would 'em dead, but 40,000-fold we had rather have 'em prisoners to us than death. Bear 'em speedily from our kind heir to them unkind, and minister what man to man may do for our sake more. Since I have known frights, fury, friends, behests, loves, provocations, zeal, a mistress, task, desire of liberty, a fever, madness, hath set a mark which nature could not reach to without some imposition, sickness in will, or wrestling strength in reason. For our love and great Apollo's mercy, all our best, their best skill tender. Lead into the city, where, having bound things scattered, we will post to Athens for our army. And that's the end of Act 1, Scene 4. So what he's saying here, and first of all, slight disclaimer, if you go and you find the original text of this, there is a word in it that sounds very similar to a word that I do not feel comfortable saying, and that makes a lot of other people uncomfortable to hear it. It's not that word, but it's similar to that word, and back when Shakespeare wrote it, it meant something very different than how people might hear it today, if that makes sense. So I changed that word to begrudge in this sense, because begrudge has the same number of syllables and is like the proper definition for what that word would have meant in that context. So anyway, that aside, if you choose not to change that word in your production, that's fine, but I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable while they're watching these videos. I want to try to make Shakespeare feel accessible to everyone and welcome anyone and everyone to play any and all of the parts. So anyway, that's my point on that. But what Theseus is saying here is that since Palamon and Arcite are the nephews of King Creon, they are valuable prisoners. They are very valuable prisoners, and they need to be treated as such. He's saying we need to get the best doctors, we need to get the best medicines. Like they are worth more than Thebes is. So, if they were up and about and their true fighting selves, I'd rather that they were dead. But since they're like this, and we have them as prisoners, like let's keep them as prisoners. Let's not let them die so we can keep them as prisoners. And he talks a little bit towards the end of the speech about sickness in will versus strength in reason. So while people might be anxious to kill Palamon and Arcite, because they were on the opposite side, it makes a lot more sense and therefore requires a lot more strength to allow them to live so that they can be like used as bargaining chips later. So he's like, okay, cool, now we've got them, so lead on, let's get back to Athens, where we are supposed to be. And that's the end of Act 1, Scene 4. So now we have these two noble kinsmen who are fairly injured, but they're going to be treated, and now they're being kept prisoners. So this is where the play is going to go. It's not a play about a war, it's a play about some prisoners who are noble kinsmen, and that's the name of the play. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.